Greetings. Welcome to a new episode of Art Matters. I'm your host, Wayne Quackenbush. And today we have a very special show. Usually we interview two artists and we don't usually have them on screen at the same time, but I'm a big fan of couples that are creative. And so I have my old friends, Vidar Haaland and Betsy Lamonte-Haaland. And they've been married for a number of years now, and they're both artists and creators, and we're going to find out a little bit about how that works. Now, we're going to do this in separate interviews because of how the space is set up and how the sound goes here. So we're going to start with Vidar. We all met through the Newport Roundtable Writers Group. And I remember that, Vidar, when you were there, you were writing a lot about your childhood and things like that. And I was wondering if you could give us a little bit of background about what got you interested in art and how you progressed in your whole process.
Okay. I think I probably got interested in art first when I was about 9 years old, and we had gone, my mother took the 4 kids and we went to Norway for 6 months because my grandfather had died the year before. And just by circumstances, my grandmother had rented the front room of her house to an artist. And so it was arranged that he would do a portrait in charcoal of my sister and myself separately. So we sat in that room, and I think I had at least 10 or 12 sittings. And the artist was all geared up in his smock and easel, and he set out a bowl of fruit to sort of keep us kind of entertained. And those 2 portraits were, framed and sitting in our house my whole childhood. And I think I just got really fascinated by the whole process of being able to make something like that from what you can see,
so
to make a piece of art.
It was kind of a special kind of magic, right? Starting from a blank page and then filling it up with the portraits. And
yes, exactly. Yeah. So I think after that, we had art in elementary school, and I know one of the art teachers came around with a cart, and she told us about how great Elmer's glue was for all kinds of things. Mm-hmm. And but I was drawing a lot during that time, but I didn't take too much art in school. But I know I did oils in high school on my own, and I think I really enjoyed being able to make something and then show it to somebody.
But you were able to go on to art school, though, after high school, right?
Well, after high school, I became a psychologist.
Okay.
And I studied at the URI, and that was my career. But at the time I went to graduate school, I met an artist in Wickford named Barbara Besson, and that was my first watercolor class, actually. And I thought it was just kind of magical, the way the pigments swirled around in the water. And from that time, I had a studio in my house, and I probably spent too much time doing watercolors, more than my psychology studies. But I became a school psychologist, and then I painted on the side. And then then in the 90s, I went to Lime Academy of Arts.
Oh, okay, all right.
And I studied with David Dewey, who was a great watercolor painter, and that kind of opened up all kinds of ideas about watercolor.
Well, Lime is a pretty amazing place now, and they have a museum and nice facilities and everything. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a great school, and it was a very traditional approach to art, and I was lucky to be able to take classes there in the evenings. And I think I went there probably like 7 or 8 years in the evenings.
So now you're doing a lot of watercolors, and you're also associated with some arts organizations, and I think you just were talking about how you're part of a collective.
This is a gallery at Tiverton Four Corners. It's called Four Corners Gallery, and it'll be opening in March 4th.
Oh, so this is a new venture then.
It's a new thing.
Okay.
And when I retired from psychology, and after I had met Betsy, I devoted myself really to painting and making art full time, and it was a great opportunity. And at that time, I joined the South Coast Artist, which is a 4-town open studio tour from Tiverton, Little Compton, Westport, and Dartmouth. And then I also joined the Art Drive, which is also an open studio thing in the summer, which is Dartmouth and Westport. And so I basically was painting a lot to gear up for these shows in the summer.
You also opened up your studio, since you share a space, obviously, and had people come and tour in your house, right?
Yes, that's part of the both the Art Drive and the South Coast Artists. I think there's about 80 art. There's about 8. I'm trying to. There's a lot of artists on the tour. It's hard to get to all of them.
Yeah, there are.
It's 2 weekends for the South Coast Artists, and then a 3-day weekend for the Art Drive.
I know they've made a special app that you could download so you could do a geolocation for all the studios.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, we've had a lot of good technology expertise in the group.
Yeah, absolutely. And so you brought a number of paintings that you can share with us. It seems like you're very enamored with the seaside, at least from what I can see right now.
Yes, I love the seaside, and I think that most of my paintings are maybe about longing, and some of it is from memory. And I like capturing the atmosphere of a place that I've loved. I like including people in paintings, so I don't know if I brought many of those, but
okay, that's all right. If you want to start showing some,
I can
work.
show you these. The work on the large full sheet watercolor on back there is from we had an art week. We were invited to an art week at Fairfield Porter Summer House in Maine, Great Spruce Head Island, and we had a little tour over to another island, Bear Island, and we all, we spent the week painting in the environment that Porter painted.
All right.
And we ended up having a show at the end of the week.
Oh, cool.
But I took so many photos, and so some of these paintings are related to that. These 2 small ones are, whoops,
That one.
like that? Like that?
You'll see.
Oh.
Yep, right there.
These,
yep, perfect.
These 2 paintings are done, these are smaller, and they're done on illustration boards. So the watercolor is a little more organic in the way it flows on the paper. It sits more on the surface of the paper.
So are you a big fan of the possibility of the flow of things and having some sort of control, or do you kind of let things go, or?
Well, I'm pretty much a control person.
All right.
I'll let things flow, but then I'll pull it in.
Yeah, I hear you.
This is another one of this is from up in Maine, the same. I don't know if he's.
Do you do much in the way of plein air? Oh, you should hold it up so that he can get a picture of it.
I do plein air, but a lot of times I'm more comfortable working in the studio because I can. There's more I can do out in the studio.
Do you take photographs for reference?
I take a lot of photos. And when we're on vacation or whatever we do, I usually have a camera with me, and I'm snapping people in cafes and on the street, and a lot of it, some things just strike me for whatever reason that there's something I love about it, and that's what I try to capture in the paintings.
So you mentioned longing, so hold that up and talk about the atmosphere you're creating here.
All right. Well, this painting is really just a local scene in Westport.
Okay.
This is the rescue station down by the water.
Oh, way down at the end. Yeah. I recognize it.
And I mean, this atmosphere is just that bright summery day.
Yeah.
And that's always something I like to keep in my heart.
Well, Westport is such a great location for doing work like this.
Yes.
because it's just like there's water everywhere.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So do you want to put this down here and then
Yep.
bring up the next one?
Now this one is, this is part of that art week that I was on. And this was one of the fellow artists, and she's taking a rest on the swing on the porch.
Now, do you get very elaborate with the drawing underneath, or
I do a drawing of sort of like the outlines.
yeah, like a
Just a sketch
like the
of the
skeleton,
outline
the
and where the
hang-
shapes are, what I'm going to work from.
Now, do you recommend a particular kind of watercolor? Is there a certain kind that you like to work with?
Well, I use Winsor Newton, and
Okay.
I also use the, what's it called again? The other one I use is a more pigmented one, and I'm just blanking on the name right
That's
now.
okay, not a big deal.
Yeah. But I think it's important to use really artist quality watercolors because
Yeah.
you get the best effects.
Absolutely.
And you really have to get to know the paint, know what pigments are in it, whether it's going to granulate, you get more texture.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so it's a lifelong kind of learning about
Absolutely.
these things, and then you apply it more automatically as you.
Now, do you ever
more experience.
drop out and mask stuff, or you just kind of?
I don't mask anything, no. I just paint it and then, but I can go back into it to redefine a line. Sometimes I'll use some gouache
Yeah.
for that purpose.
Gouache is obviously it's
more
watercolor, but
opaque.
it's opaque.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep. Now this is an old memory from an old slide in Norway, and I think the thing that it's kind of an old family gathering in the daytime, and that's something that is a significant memory for me. And
So it was his family then?
this is family. This is my younger brother Gary, and this is a cousin. It's my mom, and this is her name is Björk, but I don't know. And this is my uncle Norman, and another person who was kind of like growing up with my father.
Now you told when we first met, you were telling very vivid stories about your time there, and I can see that reflected in your work too now.
Yes, it made a big impression going to a different country, and I think probably also people gave a lot of attention to us because my parents had, moved to America, and so and this was the first time.
Oh yeah, it must
my
have been a
parents
big
came back.
deal.
It was a real homecoming.
Yeah, and I mean, and I'm sure that when you went, the difference between life in America and the life there was pretty striking.
There were a lot of farms,
Okay.
which we had nothing of in New Jersey.
Right.
This is in Westport, called what's it called? Boathouse Row.
Boathouse Road.
Boathouse Row. It's a lot of little cottages. It's very similar to little camp things that you'd find around the coast of Norway, and I like the buildings and the shadows, and I also like to make it a little more abstract, to not include all the parts of the houses, but and I like older buildings.
You get some striking contrast between the purples and the shadow and then the orange of the building. It really makes everything pop. Yeah.
Yeah, this
All
one.
right, we got time for one more big one. Can't stand up. Can't stand up.
Okay.
You can just gesture.
All right. Now, this painting came from Betsy and I were really lucky to go. We were invited by a friend of Betsy's to go to a town south of Paris. It was probably about a few hours out of Paris, and the village was a medieval village, and there were a lot of houses for sale. A lot of young people have abandoned those types of places to live in the city, and we were there a week in November.
Nice.
And this is sort of an abstracted view of all of these houses clustered closely together, with the tile roofs, and
Well, we're going to have to stop it right there. And
Yes.
thank you, Vidar. We're going to switch places, and Betsy's going to get her chance. Now everyone has switched places, and we get to talk to Betsy Lamonte-Haaland. And Betsy, I've known you for, wow, it's been a number of years, and again, we met through the writers group that was hosted by Mark Ellis and Melissa Martin Ellis. And you were working on a memoir of your very eclectic life.
Bingo. I like that.
You want to talk a little bit about how you came to there and how you came here?
Okay. I ended up at the writers group after moving back from California, and I started a memoir when I got a computer because I figured I should learn how to write and use Photoshop.
And you had a lot of stories to tell.
And I had way too many stories, and now I have 1 billion stories, so I'm not too much farther along. But all of my stories have photographs of most of the stuff that I'm showing here is in the book,
Okay.
which makes it probably impossible to print, but that's okay. The book, whoops, the book. Where do I look? The
Right
book.
there.
Okay, the book. This is it. Only it hasn't been published yet. I'll
That's
just
your
show
mock-up cover.
It's my mock-up, and inside is a dandelion pattern. And I've been in love with dandelions for years. During my real life, I was a textile designer. Oops, I can't get
pick
that,
that
so I
up
won't.
now.
So I ended up at one point in time really deciding that I was a dandelion because I
Yes.
wasn't much of a good artist. I was a textile designer, so I could copy anything in the world. And I figured dandelions are very much forgotten. Over against the wall here, I had done a collection about dandelions and added in plaids and stripes, and at the time I was doing bedding. So I always wanted to lie on dandelion sheets, which did not happen. So I'll back up from that a little bit. I went to art school at RISD. They let me in early admissions on a drawing of a pile of old men's shoes.
No, you're originally from Maine, though, right?
I was from Maine, and I
Okay,
wanted
so
to
you
leave
applied
home.
to RISD, which is the Rhode Island School of Design, in case anyone doesn't know.
And I didn't think I'd get in, but I got to sleep through those tests you have to have as a senior. So that was really good. It was a snowstorm. And I went to RISD and quickly discovered that everybody knew a lot more than me. And
A big, small pond and a big fish or something like
yeah,
that.
and I was a pipsqueak.
Yeah.
So I figured I wanted to stay there, and the only way I could was if I became a textile designer, because the only thing I could do was copy
Okay.
after freshman foundation. So I moved to California, then I moved to New York after getting married to my college boyfriend, and started being a textile designer in New York, which was a great place to be.
Especially in that time period.
Yeah, so that was the 1970s. Then we moved back to California, and I was lucky enough, some people in New York introduced me to the people at Esprit. So I brought in a little picture of my Esprit stuff. And at one point in time, they had a Real People campaign, and I'm the person, whoops, I'm the person over here. And this is a lady I worked with, and she's showing one of my boards. So I got into the habit of making boards to show my work to people. And I did that until I moved back to Massachusetts, kind of on a whim. I wasn't sure what we would end up doing, but my husband turned out was sick, and I gave him a kidney and joined the writing group. And that's where I met you, Wayne.
But you skipped over the part where you traveled all over the world doing research and all sorts of other things.
Oh, yeah.
Italy and Hong Kong and the Philippines. We talked about the
Yeah.
Philippines quite a bit.
In Shanghai. That was the other good part of being part of the fashion world, especially connected to Esprit, was because they had a house in Hong Kong. So I started doing little tiny miniatures of watercolors after I reviewed all my photographs. And over time, the photographs of other places ended up being the first stories that I wrote.
Right.
And you guys critted them and whatever. And I don't know, it kind of got me back into writing, which was the subject I did well in high school. And the only subject I did well in freshman year at RISD. So that was a backhanded way of
Well, you know,
getting there.
writing and painting to me go hand in hand, and you can definitely explore both and learn the similarities of the thinking that goes behind it, the creative thoughts.
And for me, I never like to really stay in one place very long, so I'm always changing stuff. I brought in...
Except when you're painting, because you're very, very specific about place there.
Yeah. I don't sell my paintings, so they cover my walls at our house.
Down like
No,
that.
straight enough? Is it high enough?
Yep.
Okay. What I end up doing commissions for often, that's the only way I sell my stuff, or not my stuff, but stuff for people. They see that I can paint animals or houses, and they say, oh my God, can you do one for me? And this is one of my favorites because it was very hard to do. 2 dogs in the back are large dogs, and 4 cats were teeny. And then I got this one photograph. The
Wow.
black cat wasn't in it, so I took her out of another image, placed her in the empty dead spot, and got a picture of all my babies.
Very, very specific.
Because I taught myself watercolors, I didn't know anything about how to make a watercolor, but I knew a lot about gouache. So I just started out,
Because you use gouache in your textile work.
yeah.
Right.
So I used watercolors, but I just painted layer after layer after layer. I'd start really light and I'd work up darker, and they can take 60 or 70 hours to do.
Well, you basically turn watercolors into gouache then.
Yeah, more or less.
Okay.
Yeah. And this is on my bureau at home. So I wake up every morning and see the Buddha made out of wood and falling apart, but it's kind of a nice thing.
Now, where do you keep the painting then?
The painting is down in my studio.
Okay, so you have the same thing in 2 different rooms.
Yeah, exactly. So it really works out as far as being able to be around them all the time. And until I met Vidar, I didn't know anything about, smart ways to design stuff. So I would make a piece of art and then I try to get a frame for it. And he said, no, you figure that out beforehand.
Yeah, you make
It's
a
lot
standard
easier.
size.
Yeah.
Well, this is kind of the reason why I had you on together, is because I know if you're both creative people and you bring different skill sets into not only your lives as artists, but in your relationship, you can build on that
Yeah.
with each other.
Definitely.
And so, I'm kind of a proponent of that.
Well, he had lots of tricks, and I was always stubborn and didn't want to take classes and didn't want anyone to tell me what to do. So
Vidar is more practical then.
he's more focused on, he knows how to get from point A to point B, and I have no idea. I have to go to Z before I can get to B. Does that make sense?
Yep. So, do you want to get into some clothing, or we're going to do?
We got 5 minutes. Okay, I'll skip that painting.
No, don't.
Oh, okay.
We
What
have time.
painting?
We have time.
Okay.
No, we got to show everything.
Okay. Okay. So this is one of my favorites at my house. I rarely paint people, and if there was going to be a person in anything I did, it would have to be their back only. I paint emptiness, and I think that's because I've been too frenetic. So
Phonetic?
frenetic.
Oh,
just
frenetic.
Frenetic, yeah.
You don't like to do faces.
No, I can do them.
Okay.
It's no problem. I just
Okay.
don't like people. I mean, people,
So now it's the long-suffering Vidar.
I painted him, and I think I painted him a couple of times, but that seems personal to me. For me,
Yeah.
it's personal, so
Well, people are going to see this and they're going to say, "That's not a painting. This is a photograph."
yeah.
Because that's how tight you are.
Oh, that's,
We used to have
Yeah.
arguments about that.
yeah,
Remember about how to do a still life?
yeah.
You always have to take a picture, and I said, "No, don't take a picture."
Yeah, I know. Vidar told me I was in a class once, and I ended up wanting to leave the class because the guy wouldn't let me
I
use
remember
photographs.
that. You were adamant about working on it from a photograph.
And I was going to do it. I mean, my goodness, if you're retired and you can't do exactly what you want to do, it's not worth it.
Right, you have that. You have that choice. Yeah, it's not like you need the grade.
But I'll just do this really quickly.
No, we got time. Take your
Okay.
time.
This is a direction that I've been heading in more now. This summer I was, is that okay? Yeah, I think so.
He'll get it. He'll get it.
This summer I was in the South Coast Artist Show, and I decided that I was going to talk about time. So everything that I made had something to do with a clock. This clock here, I bought at the MFA, but it's never kept time. So that appealed to me to have a clock with a battery in it. And the best thing about it is it's never on time. And then I decided I had that piece of wood and it looked like a teapot, and I had a handle and I had a spout. And then of course I needed to have a bird and a teacup and a spoon,
Right.
because it's tea for one.
Let's not forget the knock on the top.
Oh yeah, that was just some stuff I had hanging around that I
You
glued
basically
together.
have a piece of wood that's turned into a percolator that has a clock on it now.
Exactly.
So
Or a teapot.
you were definitely wowing the people that saw this.
Yeah.
What were the reactions?
Well, I told them I wouldn't sell it, so.
The people wanted to buy it, of course.
No, they wouldn't get it.
This is kind of a shadow box thing.
Yeah.
What does the bird mean to you?
The bird's alive. He's just
Okay.
looking at the time.
Okay.
It
And what
doesn't
does
work.
it say at the bottom?
Then I did a painting of it, and at the bottom of the painting I said, I do not want to be governed by clocks or restraints. I just want to be. So that kind of sums up life
Right.
for me right now.
Yep.
And this guy right here, again, nobody but me kind of got it. But I just had all the stuff that I bought, which is probably the most fun about making assemblages, because that's what they really are, is you can put a tin stamp cow with a piece of a clock and then add in a baby cow in a watch fob and hang it on the wall.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that's kind of what I did.
Well, you don't have to know much to know that this is like Dada surrealist, but it's also got a whole shot of Betsy in it.
Yeah, Vidar, can you grab me the Nuno felting at the back? Forget those first three. Okay. And can you grab the other two?
We're down to the last minute, so.
So I'm just going to show a few seconds of my Nuno felting. I can stand up as long as I don't wreck the mic. Da-da-da, da-da-da. So that's one of the garments that I've made. This is one of my cowls. And I've learned how to fast stitch without anything holding the sewing machine back. And I wrote with my sewing machine, I promise if you keep searching for everything beautiful, you will eventually become it. And then I turned it into a cowl.
Okay, you're obsessed with cows. That's a new one.
And this was another piece that I top stitched. And I don't know if we're aimed to it. Yeah.
Okay, we're getting down to the last 10 seconds, so maybe
And
one
that's
more?
it.
Okay, well then, thank you, Vidar. Thank you, Betsy. It's been so long, and I'm so
It really
glad that
has
you
been.
both were able to come down and share this with everybody.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And folks, that wraps up another episode of Art Matters. Join us next time. Thanks for hanging out.